Professor Mahendra Patel, University of Bradford, and National Board Member of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society.
And in a few sentences, if you want to just talk about some of the work you've been doing over the past couple of months to encourage people from the BAME community to sign up for vaccines and try and bust all the myths that's going around.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I'm a Hindu myself, but I don't just necessarily reach out to the Hindu community, but I've been reaching out to the Muslim community, particularly in the Yorkshire region, and the Indian Muslim community as well, really, through the mosques in Kirklees Calderdale area as well, Batley, Dewsbury, but also to the Punjabi community on a wider scale through various media, such as media channels such as television, radio, etc., but also the Pakistani group that we have within Sheffield that I've been working with and reaching out to people through the radio stations, either in Urdu, Hindi language, as well as English, to reach out to the different age groups as well, really. So having question and answer sessions through those various platforms, really.
I don't know if you've heard about the pop-up vaccine centre that's open in Central Mosque in Keighley. What are your thoughts on initiatives like that and reaching out through people through places of worship?
I think it's great in terms of because of the misinformation, the myths, and the attitudes towards people having vaccines, particularly within the Black and Asian minority ethnic group. It differs from different communities and it differs from different faith groups as well. And as we, as a Black and Asian minority ethnic group, is a very heterogeneous pool of people, and it's very complex. So it's not a case of, well, this is the BAME group and this is one message and these have got to be tailored not to the different, the larger groups within that BAME identification, but also the subgroups within those groups as well that we need to look at. I've just been talking to a Gujarati Hindu community just now, and their beliefs and attitudes are slightly somewhat different to what, in a general level, to what I've heard from the wider BME community. Yes, it's only a small sample. And I think having the places of worship and is a key area, because religion and place of worship gives that extra assurance for people to think, well, actually, it must be okay to have our vaccines, particularly when the temples, the gurdwaras and mosques are actually providing that service as well, really. So it adds that extra support and value towards people wanting to come forward. Also, it becomes a place where they feel more homely as well, really, and it's not a foreign environment where suddenly you're going into a place where they may be they may be sort of undecided or wavering and still have doubts about having the vaccine but coming forward, but that sort of eases their own minds in having the vaccination with the assurance, trust and belief that that in terms of the safety of the vaccine and the efficacy of the vaccine as well, really.
So do you think the work people are doing now is making a difference? And if not, what do you think needs to be done differently in future to encourage more people to sign up for the vaccines?
I think we've got to realise that the work that people are doing, there's a huge amount of work, and we're trying to explore all avenues, whether if it's through the various platforms of media, television, press, etc. But and NHS leaders coming out as well, and community leaders coming out and having spokespeople, etc., etc. So that is making a significant difference. But as we all know, there is still that corner and pockets of people still holding back in terms of some of the information that they might be still carrying in terms of the safety of and the doubts around that regarding the vaccine. So I think there's a lot of work done around that. More can be done. There's always more that can be done. We've got to look at the generational split. So somebody, the younger generation like yourself, remember, could be an essential part of the armory that we have in sending the message, because people from it's well known that people from a Black and Asian minority ethnic group, particularly the Asian communities, live in extended families really as well, and reach out to those. So somebody younger could be reaching out to 1, 2, or even 3 generations within that family or household. So I think that's something that could be more concentrated and accelerated and galvanized. I think the messaging for the different age groups could also be different, because their beliefs and understanding, if somebody, let's say, for example, is 30 to 50 years of age, will have a different information setting mindset compared to somebody much more older in the age profile, really. So I think it's how we address those. And I think some of the other things is also sometimes we have heads of households that may make the decision in certain communities as well, and certain parts of certain communities, and that that goes with all that becomes a cultural thing. And perhaps we do need to look at that as well. Really, having the women's group as well is to give them some focus. But I think having the younger audience group could be really championing that within their household. So there's still lots of work that can be done. There's lots of people from the NHS leaders from a BAME background that's pushing things in different languages, and little podcasts and videocasts and social media platforms. But that misinformation, the myth, it just needs a small amount of it, and it just goes viral on these different platforms as well, and they run with it without the evidence behind it. So I think, and the other part is it would be good to have regular question and answer session with local community groups, so that's specifically tailored to meet their own doubts and lack of information that they may have, and want more information around the vaccines and the importance of having the vaccine. Really, I think that has got to be continuously emphasized all the time.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hard because everything's virtual right now, but I feel like because everything's online, it limits access for certain people, and not everyone's aware of, oh, there's a talk going on tonight because it's online. So I guess that's another problem, that things are all virtual and not everyone has access to that as well.
I think that's the other point that I'm trying to allude to. So it's all right signposting people, and again, that's not the only source, but signposting people to the government website or BBC website or on the internet. But there are people who are still living on their own, elderly people, and also look at the care homes as well, really. And that's where I think the virtual platforms, one of the organisations that I was just working with, within that subgroup, we can't access them electronically by virtual means. They don't have the platform to do that. And now also those people at home that may do would be a very small and limited number. So I think in the wider scheme of things, yes, it's working for people like ourselves. And this is where we need to reach to the very crevices of the communities in terms of making that change, and where the younger generation could become a really big platform in sharing that message to the families where they can't access the internet, they can't get those messages across virtually, etc. But they could be, again, great champions in getting this very important message out, really. So I think all in all, people are trying their best. What has happened is we are discovering new ways of reaching out, and we are discovering, and we actually now beginning to realize the importance of, number one, reaching out to those communities. Number two is using the people that we have more effectively, working closer within at the ground level to be able to understand what the problem and the issues are, so that we can help address those, and then also spread that out wider to a more larger area throughout the community, where it can be done through a virtual platform, rather than just coming from a central message and here, this is what we need you to do, really. So I think it has really shone a terrific light in terms of the importance of reaching out to the BME community, reducing the inequalities that we're seeing, and reaching out in a manner that they can accept, relate to, and actually make a difference to as a result of that.
Yeah, definitely. I do think there is hope for the future, and slowly but surely all this work will pay off and people will hopefully change their minds about the vaccine.
Absolutely, and we want champions like yourself, really, and continuing to spread that message. So it is important, you know, this is a collective piece of work. It is not just one, you know, and it's not a message for one size fits all, but it is collective. We all have to do our bit. And as we know, with the new variants coming through, and we don't know how many, you know, that will continue, and therefore we need to stay on top. And vaccines are the way out, because there'll be tinkering with those vaccines to ensure that we stay at pace with the new variants and carrying to curb that issue as well, really. So I think it is absolutely important that we continue in this message, work together, and have a better understanding as to the dangers of not addressing some of the issues that we have within our communities, really.